yeah, can we go there one day, Dad? And then he'd go, like, yeah, okay. And then eventually he asked me why on earth a 4-year-old boy wanted to go to a massive wood depot on the outskirts of Bradford. And I said, well, it says there, Play World. I went, no, son, that says plywood. So I was desperately disappointed, but I did find out what plywood was from a very early age. There you go. And that's my stupid 4-year-old plywood story.
But do you know what? We could have done with an anecdote that to liven up the exhibition, I reckon.
The plywood exhibition?
Yeah.
Possibly.
Dart said, former players in... Oh, this is more serious topics now. Former players in the video ref box didn't really change much over here in Australia. Patton has also been the man in the bunker for some interesting calls.
There you go, see?
He says. I've added the emphasis, but that was what he was looking to be added, I think.
Yeah.
So it's an idea, and one that I think always gets traction, former players as referees.
Yeah.
But I think as we'll get on to later on, and as we mentioned before, a lot of the referees have played the game, probably more than a lot of us listening have played the game. So
they played and coached and all sorts of stuff, haven't they? So
okay, David Powell says, just to keep the discussion going, then some emoji that I don't really know what's going on with it. I don't think he's happy with us about this discussion. Anyway, he said, strips and recoveries work fine in the NFL, so why not rugby league? Touch judges can ref offside. My real point is the ruck and ball stealing are the big issue. Sort that and the game is much easier to ref.
Yeah, I agree. How do we sort it?
Well, we had our ideas last week, and we're going to get some feedback on my idea last week.
Excellent.
Coming up. But sort of go a step past the easier to ref and let's say better to watch as well. That's what we're looking for.
Definitely.
But to answer his more specific question, strips and recoveries work fine in the NFL, so why not rugby league? I think one of the main differences is the down by contact and the forward progress and that sort of thing, which if you're familiar with the NFL is kind of how a play is deemed to have come to an end.
Right.
Whereas in our sport, the play comes to an end sort of on a notional kind of referee's interpretation of how the contact has occurred and whether the ball's been put down or not. Mm-hmm. And then in the NFL, it ends either if any part of the player carrying the ball hits the floor other than his hands that aren't carrying the ball. Okay, the play's dead if he's been touched by another player and then hits the floor. Right. Which is different. There's a wrestle and stuff going to the ground in our sport, so that's different. And also, if a player goes forward and then gets tackled and pushed back, a whistle will blow, and that'll be the end of the play. Yeah. So the ball could come out after that's happened, but it wouldn't be a fumble, or, a knock on. And then whenever the play's whistled dead or stopped, they fully reset. Whereas ours is fluid; it keeps moving. Mm-hmm. So, if it was a serious question, I think it's the fluidity of our sport compared to the way the plays are stopped in the NFL that makes that a difficult thing to achieve.
Okay. I'm with you.
But yeah, things like that, and also like our 6 tackle plays and all of that is why the NFL is a more similar sport to ours than rugby union is. But there you go.
Scoots.
Yeah, so Sarah, on the same topic, says, how about saying the onus is always on the attacking player to control the ball? If it goes to ground, it's a knock-on.
Well, yeah, but what about strips?
Which is saying...
If it gets stripped?
No such thing as a strip.
Well, no, that's not going to work, is it? Because I don't know how I feel about this.
Well, I sort of waited to make this point about the NFL for this topic, because one of the things in the NFL is the players wear gloves.
Yeah.
A lot of the players who catch and carry the ball wear gloves. And those gloves, whilst not having like sticky properties necessarily, have a sort of texture that kind of helps them to grip
the ball
a little bit.
Okay.
And it made me start then thinking about this spray that all the players put on their hands nowadays.
All right.
And I assume they put that on their hands for some reason to help them with ball control, because otherwise why else would they put it on their hands?
Do you think Francis Melly use Frylight?
Well, the thing is, has that actually really been tested properly? Because it feels like there's as many, if not more, knock-ons nowadays than there were before.
Yeah.
So So what?
Maybe
is
it's
this?
not effective.
Or maybe it's effective and there'd be tons and tons and tons more without it. I don't know. I've never seen the trials and the results of those to judge that. But there you go. Alfie Wolf.
Yes.
Dargana says, players cheating. Tom, you're right. By Mark's principle, Atkins throws a forward pass, but the ref plays on. Should Atkins then confess?
Well, I'm glad. It's nice to be told I'm right. That wasn't the sort of area of the sport where I was kind of gearing my argument to. And I know Darren likes to do this firmly tongue-in-cheek as well, because he knows our thoughts on the areas of life where Ryan Atkins has cheated.
No, I think... Well, he mentioned later on in the conversation that I had then on my own Twitter about, maybe it was a bad example.
Yeah.
But go on.
Well, no, it's kind of undone my point for me now,
I don't know if he meant it to be a bad example in the first place or not. But it can be a bit...
Well, look, the next couple of tweets are going to talk about this, aren't they? And kind of my thoughts on getting players to police themselves. And we talked about it ad nauseum last week, so I won't remake the points. But, sportsmen will engage in gamesmanship.
I would say that I would explain that I don't know if Dar got what my point was necessarily. Similar to what Bernard says, because Bernard, JKD, got into it. He said, rugby league is so not a gentleman's game, a la union hockey or cricket. Hence, to change, you cannot count on players' behaviour.
Well, you can count on that in rugby in other sports as well.
No, I think there's the dark arts of the scrum and all those sort of lines that come out of
union.
That, and whether people walk or not in cricket. Australians have never walked, and maybe the English have or whatever. So the point I was making wasn't that every time someone does something wrong, they need to hold their hand up and tell them they got something wrong, because people do suffer from poor execution of plays, whether it be an attack, which would be a forward pass, or an obstruction, or what have you, or in defence, whether it's a shot that goes a little bit high, or a tackle that goes in at the wrong angle on a joint, or those things. And some of those things aren't always nastiness.
No.
Some of it is just poor execution of that particular play due to whatever reason. Poor skill, poor practice, fatigue, whatever. My point was, stop doing the things that are outside of the normal course of the game now, the things that you wouldn't want done to yourself intentionally, because cheating is intentional, and most forward passes that are thrown, most knock-ons that are made, are not intentional. The odd one may be
Brent Webb notwithstanding.
Well, that I don't. This is the thing, I don't know, because so many went forward from his hands that you can't say that they were intentional. You can't kind of think maybe he thought that was how the game was to be played. But I take those guys' points on board. So I don't think when players make a mistake, it's there for the referee to judge. So that wasn't what I was saying. So I hope that's cleared that up for Dar and anyone else who was confused. In terms of the gentleman's game situation, like you say, maybe those sports aren't quite as gentlemanly as Bernard wants to feel anyway, particularly in professionalisation now of some of those games. But you can't count on behaviour as it stands, but I would prefer it if you could. That's all I was saying.
No,
really.
exactly.
Get that point. Another one from Dargana. This one shocked me, Thomas. He said,
I can imagine,
He said, Mark, you called it correctly with being that Watts should have got an on-report call, or at worst a yellow clappy hands emoji.
There you go.
Yeah. I was blown away. I felt like he'd not agreed with me since.
Were you waiting for a follow-up punchline
series? Well, but he said no. He normally just doesn't tell me when he agrees with me, because I think he likes to argue.
There you go. Absolutely. Good on him.
John Scotter at John Scotter 15 said, finished night and thought it would be interesting to see what is a nurse fighting the good fight in our NHS. So good for him. He says, thought interesting to see what Mark made of it all. Apparently it's all Jake Connor's fault. Think the match tone was set with Locker's challenge at the end of the first set. Why can you hit a kicker late but not a passer?
I think, looking for the very genesis of it and then using the first person to make a mistake to assign blame is a dangerous game. Both sets of players were bang up for a bit of naughtiness in this one.
I think the thing with the O'Loughlin one, I was kind of waiting for a Hull fan to pick this out, so I was surprised when it got till late Thursday for John or Friday morning even, whenever it was, for John to pick this up. And I appreciate what he said, because that challenge from Lockers, it was a late push rather than anything particularly egregious, but probably should have been a penalty because of the lateness of it and the fact that it wasn't a genuine tackle attempt. That was slightly earlier in the game. I do take that on board, but I would say that those tackles occur on kickers on almost every first kick of every kicker's kicks of every game of rugby league that's played at the moment. Those right at the line, like, do you call it a penalty or not kind of scenarios.
Yeah.
That wasn't coming over the top, smacking someone round the side of the face on the blind side when there was no actual need for it because the person had no capability of doing something to you at that point. They were passing the ball and they had passed the ball.
Yeah.
That's it. And I know, and I'm not saying you can hit a kicker and not a passer. I'm saying you can't smack someone round the back of the head when they're not looking and think that's better than giving someone a push a bit late, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And I think Jake Connor was trying to cause a ruckus where Sean O'Loughlin was trying to pressurise a key player. And I think there's a difference. And I know Sam Tompkins is a key player too, but Jake Connor was trying to piss off the key player, not unsettle the key player. Do you see what I mean?
I completely see what you mean. Yeah,
that's how I felt.
I see how the nuances fall.
But obviously, I get why a Hull fan would see it the other way. I can if I was a Hull fan, I'd be saying what John said. Totally.
Yeah. There you go. Wonderful. Okay, who's next up after John? Back to Bernard.
Oh yeah, he said he agrees regarding Ireland. Nothing is happening, and yes, I literally mean nothing at the senior level for some years, sadly. He also agrees 100% regarding Lancs and Yorkshire's game, but let's also have Cumbria versus, then he says, Merseyside with a question mark.
I'd have London
on the same card, or at least on the same weekend. Yeah, I think he was trying to think of who else to put in there. I'd like
Cumbria versus like the South.
A North versus South, Cumbria South West.
Yeah.
Those types of scenarios, as the undercard. And I think the thing for me is rugby, albeit union predominantly, grew out of representative contests. And just to restrict ourselves from having them because we don't want our sport to appear parochial or backwards looking or inwards looking is silly, for the same reason I said last week, because our game is expanding and is welcoming expansion. And so to give its core something to hark back to that reflects of a rivalry of old, the kind of rivalries that gave the sport its rise, be it rugby union in the early days or rugby league. Really, the reason why more countries don't play the Gaelic version of football or the Aussie rules version of football or the American and Canadian version of football, the reason why they aren't bigger sports and don't have international competition played is because they were never set up. That whereas for rugby and maybe association football to protect, but particularly rugby, everything grew out of putting people together into a group and then playing that group against another rival local group, and that's how you spawned the whole thing. And that's why we have these sort of strong rivalries that exist: Queensland against New South Wales, Australia, New Zealand, England, South Africa, and then the 4 nations, 5 nations, 6 nations, because of those historical origins of the game being played between representative touring sides and that sort of thing. And this is what that kind of gives us something back to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in this day and age there's room for a bit of sentiment, and I think you couldn't have it in the current structure, you couldn't have it in the current fixture list, but in a revamped version of that, there's certainly room for it.
Yeah.
I think there's appetite for it, growing appetite for it.
And Bernard's point about Ireland, that is a shame. I know we occasionally get things shared to us by Dar from the Facebook page that Ireland have and that sort of thing. And we've talked about them in the past. And Dar wrote a great blog, didn't he? 3 or 4 years ago now, about the All Ireland sort of final, and there was the Ireland, North Ireland, South Ireland origin clashes and those sort of things. And I believe they still happen, but obviously the interest has died down. It's meant Bernard's radio spot kind of went nowhere because there was not enough coverage, not enough stuff to even talk about. So his journalism stuff now rests in the other sort of games. Which unfortunately means Bernard's even later watching rugby league than he even maybe was a couple of months ago, which means that now we're getting, his game reviews coming to us in strings of tweets on the Friday night after the game's kicked off.
Cheers, mate. You've got to admire his commitment anyway.
Definitely, yeah.
That's definitely. Okay, Liam Parker got in touch with us, Mark.